Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Learn how top retailers are winning the last mile with delivery experience management. I'm Adam Blair, the editor of Retail Touchpoints, and I'll be moderating today's session, which is part of our Connected Consumer series of web seminars. The last mile has become a customer experience battleground for retailers, but it is one that brands can win. Shipping volumes continue to rise. According to the Retail Touchpoints Last Mile Benchmark Survey, which was just published last week, the percentage of retailers that are shipping 51% to 75% of their orders rose significantly this year, climbing from 7% of respondents in 2018 to 38% this year. Those shipping less than 10% of their orders dropped from 36% to 16%. And data suggests that nearly 12% of all shipments encounter some kind of issue, from delays to damaged packages. This webinar will explore how delivery experience management can provide a single source of last-mile data and tools, allowing retailers to actively manage deliveries efficiently and at scale. Real-world case studies from Grove Collaborative, Uncommon Goods, and Neiman Marcus will illustrate how retailers can proactively turn around negative shipping experiences or often avoid them altogether. Our speakers today are going to be sharing lots of information about this topic, and we encourage you to share some of your own data points and takeaways on Twitter using our Connected Consumer Series event hashtag. Social information for me and our speakers is also available on this slide. For those of you who may be new to Retail Touchpoints, here's a quick overview. We're an all-digital media company publishing 3 weekly email newsletters, daily news, special reports, and multimedia presentations. We also host the annual Retail Innovation Conference in New York, which will take place May 6th through the 8th, 2019. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to our newsletter. We welcome input and feedback through traditional means, phone and email, as well as social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Our website is www.retailtouchpoints.com. Speaking of our Retail Innovation Conference, we have a special sweepstakes just for this series. Attendees can win prizes like Apple AirPods, Starbucks gift cards, as well as free tickets to the Retail Innovation Conference. Each of you watching has already earned one entry into the drawing by registering for this session, and if you're attending this webinar live right now, you'll receive a second entry as well. Throughout the series, you'll earn one entry for each CCS19 webinar you sign up for, and an additional entry for each session you attend live. We'll be giving away a total of 5 free tickets. I'll be announcing a winner each day of the series, so be sure to stay tuned in all week long for your best chance to win. For today's presentation, we're using the ON24 platform. Right now, you should be viewing the ON24 dashboard, which shows the live viewing screen. By clicking on the Questions widget on the right-hand side of the screen, you can type in questions during the live presentation and press Submit. You can also find a widget named Resources under Questions. Here you can download assets our presenters have provided. All you have to do is click on the resource and it will automatically download. In addition to joining the conversation online and submitting your questions here, we also welcome and encourage you to participate by letting us know how we're doing. In an effort to constantly improve the level of value we provide to our audience members, we put together a very brief survey that will automatically launch once this webinar session ends. However, you can pull up, complete, and submit the survey at any time during the webinar. Just click on the survey icon in the taskbar on the bottom of the screen. You can see the icon circled here in black on this slide. And before signing off today, please take a moment to complete the quick questionnaire. We appreciate and value your feedback and look forward to hearing from you. Details. The presentation is slated for about 30 to 40 minutes with time for live questions at the end. I encourage you to submit those questions as they come to mind so they rise to the top during the Q&A session. We'll get to as many questions as we can, and I also encourage you to follow up with our speakers on social media if you want to discuss some of the session's takeaways. Also, the webinar is being recorded, and all attendees will receive an archive link to the presentation to go back and review or share with colleagues. You'll also have access to the slide deck through SlideShare. Now a little bit about our speakers. Jeffrey Neville is Senior Vice President and Practice Lead at BRP Consulting. He's a business-focused technology strategist with a passion for generating company results through process change and technology innovation. His experience includes both managing e-commerce and SaaS businesses and consulting with clients on their growth strategies, business and operating models, customer and market strategies. Jeffrey's combination of consulting and operating experiences in North America, the EU, and China enables him to bring a unique perspective to business challenges when partnering with clients. We also have Kirsten Newbold-Nick, who is VP Chief Marketing Officer at Convey. She has more than 15 years of senior marketing leadership experience at Fortune 100 companies and high-growth startups, including HubSpot, SolarWinds, and BigCommerce. Most recently, she was Research Vice President at Gartner, where she advised CMOs on refining strategy, organization, and MarTech priorities. Kirsten oversees Convey's corporate brand and messaging initiatives while scaling marketing support for repeatable pipeline and revenue growth. Welcome to both our speakers. I'm going to turn it over now to Jeff.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you all for attending the webinar. Again, my name is Jeff Neville, and I'm a Senior Vice President here at BRP Consulting. Today, I wanted to spend some time sharing 3 areas of research to help support how retailers are winning in the last mile. Specifically, over the next 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to try and highlight our most recent consumer and retailer survey results, as well as a best practices white paper we developed to focus on the delivery to the consumer experience. First, I wanted to share a little bit about BRP Consulting. At BRP, we are a strategy and technology consulting firm that focuses 100% on retail. Our firm has performed strategies, process improvement projects, technology selections, and system implementations for over 350 retailers. 2 areas of differentiation that I'd like to highlight are: 1, we have a high degree of repeat clients. We have done multiple projects at over 85% of our clients. And 2, 100% of our consultants have worked in industry at some point in their career. I myself have been a CIO, a Chief Operating Officer, and a Chief Technology Officer, all for retailers. And as a result, our firm has a deep understanding of the industry and the challenges our clients face. We also have a deep industry analyst and research capability. Last year alone, we published over 10 surveys and reports on topics that include consumer behavior, POS software, digital experience, and several others. At the end of last year, we performed a consumer survey that looked to understand consumer attitudes across the shopper journey. And I wanted to share a few insights related to this topic. As an aside, all of the surveys that I referenced today can be downloaded on our website, brpconsulting.com. In a world where consumers have access to an incredible amount of information, it's clear that she's going to choose to shop and purchase at the brands that allow her to do it in the way she wants. She wants to be able to buy anywhere, through any channel, and have it shipped to her or acquire her product in any way she wants. And on our consumer survey, 68% of the surveyed respondents said that they would choose a retailer who allowed the shopper to buy anywhere and ship anywhere over one that does not. 66% of the consumers are more likely to shop at retailers who have a transparent order tracking capability. Consumers value the convenience and transparency of order tracking across the retailer supply chain. In fact, sending an order shipment email with a click-through link to FedEx no longer meets customer expectations. She wants to get the updates and notifications on her phone, in emails, texts, or through Alexa, or all of the above. And as you'll see in the next section, retailers are starting to recognize this. And even with the convenience and breadth of offerings that e-commerce has, shoppers still value an in-store experience and the immediacy of getting their purchase. Over half of our consumers in the survey said that they would choose a store that offered click and collect or buy online, pick up in store over one that does not. And what this says is that, to me, what this says is that the consumer is really looking for that balance of being able to do research and go through the shopping experience on their terms, but also have the flexibility to get the product on their terms as well, whether that's walking into a store or having it shipped. And finally, from a consumer research standpoint, a retailer may offer all of these great conveniences, but if they don't get it right in the consumer's eyes, you run the risk of losing that shopper. In our survey, 63% of the respondents told us that they would not return to a retailer after a bad experience, no matter whether that's in the store or online or with the shipping process. I've also seen surveys that have an even higher number.
Yeah, Jeff, actually, in fact, this is Kirsten. I wanted to chime in. This fall, Convey did a similar survey, and we've been doing this sort of data survey longitudinally for the last 3 years. And we've seen it go from in the sort of 50s, 60s a couple years ago, so consistent with your data, all the way up to this last year. Our survey showed about 82% of people that said they wouldn't come back after a bad experience. So obviously, I think what's really fascinating here in general is the sentiment continues to rise and expectations continue to rise. And consumers are pretty unforgiving, regardless of which number is the right one. In all cases, I think we can agree it's pretty high.
Exactly, Kirsten. And really, to summarize on this point, consumers want a flexible, convenient, and transparent experience. And they're going to vote with their feet if they don't get it. In addition to our consumer survey, BRP also does several retailer surveys where we go out to the retailers themselves and get that and survey them with several different surveys. The one I wanted to share with you a few relevant metrics from a couple of these surveys that really show how retailers are listening to their customers in making sure that they're able to deliver in the last mile. In our last customer experience survey, we asked retailers how they are working to improve the customer experience and specifically the delivery experience. Over 60% told us that they offered what we would consider traditional click and collect. 36% said that they could do what we consider true buy anywhere and ship anywhere. And the investment in that infrastructure and processes is really allowing those retailers to focus on faster shipping methods and providing more shipping options to the customer. We saw that 39% of retailers surveyed now offer a same-day delivery option, although 21% of those retailers said that the offering and the customer experience needs improvement. And then 20% said that they can do 2-hour delivery in a market, but 10% admit that the offering and the capability needs improvement. So the takeaway here for me is that the technology that retailers have invested in to deliver the basic omni-channel buy online, pick up in store functionality is now allowing them to speed up their experimentation and delivery of processes and doing it in a way that's adding complexity but at scale. We also do a digital commerce survey each year, and this also confirmed that retailers are starting to leverage their investment in order management and fulfillment to offer unique and complex delivery options. As an example, 54% of those respondents told us that they now have the ability to schedule and deliver deliveries via Uber and Lyft. 30% offer curbside pickup, and 3% offer locker pickup. And as consumer expectations increase and retail competition escalates, fulfillment channels will become even more complex and more difficult to deliver a good experience. Doing a pilot is one thing, but doing it at scale is a completely other thing. Finally, last year we published a best practices white paper for the post-purchase experience. And I wanted to share with you some of these insights and what our firm considers best practices. The first is setting customer expectations even before they click buy. And as an online shopper myself, what drives me to hit that checkout button is really a couple of questions outside of, is it the product I want and is it the right price? It's also, do I trust this retailer and am I confident I will get my stuff on time? So we think it's important to start setting those expectations well before the customer is clicking checkout. If we can clearly communicate shipping costs, shipping options, delivery timing at several points along the way, then that helps build confidence and reassure the shopper that the retailer will be able to deliver. I also think that where possible, retailers should offer free returns. This eliminates another barrier to her hitting the checkout button and gives her confidence that she can return it easily if the product's not right. Now, clearly there's a cost to this, but I also think when we look at building business cases for this type of a program, there's offsetting costs in reduction in costs from a customer service standpoint, but also lost future business that need to be considered. The next is communicate tirelessly. Far too often, retailers create a great digital shopping experience. They offer the right product at a great price. They get the consumer excited about the purchase, only to fall down after checkout by sending a text-based order confirmation email with the bare minimum of information because that's what they were required to do. Or worse, they rely on the shipping provider to send out a shipping confirmation email in their brand. One of the best practices we believe strongly in is being able to deliver frequent value-added communications that expose the exact status and location of the order. And that if we do that as retailers, that will differentiate us in the eyes of the customer. And think about the lost branding and customer contact opportunities. One of my favorite retailers is a local Boston company called Tracksmith. They do a fantastic job with their marketing emails, but honestly, I only open up about 25% of them at best. But I will open up 100% of the post-purchase emails. I'm excited about the purchase. I want to know when it's going to be here, and I'm more willing to read about the other products and offerings once I've opened up that email, potentially making another purchase or at least feeling closer to the brand. The next is about professionalism and delivering the product in a professional manner. I often see this overlooked with our clients. And I'd ask the listeners to this, have you ever objectively evaluated the packaging that your product is arriving in? And when I was the VP of e-commerce at a retailer, I used to place orders to have them shipped to friends' houses just so I could see how we were doing on the packaging side. Some key questions I would ask, and I would ask others, is the branding appropriate on the box? Is the box the right size? Does it have too little or too much packaging? Does the box feel like they might have found it in a back alley? And finally, are you taking the opportunity to tell your brand story inside in some way? Ultimately, I feel like the act of opening the box should bring a smile to my customer and really reinforce the trust that they're starting to have with me as a retailer. The next is be proactive. The amount of data that we now have available to us as digital commerce operators is incredible. And we should take advantage of this information on the shipping side as much as we are on the shopping and customer experience side. Through automation, we can now sift through an incredible amount of detail, looking for trends that tell us we could have a problem with shipping, and we don't necessarily have to wait for a customer to call to tell us that their product didn't show up. In the past, we've helped clients think through this and how they can be proactive by integrating different types of data. UPS has a way for you to get through integration, get all the status on all of your shipping data. And imagine getting a call from a retailer that you were expecting a product from that says, hey, we noticed your product's going to be late, or it looks like it's lost. We're going to overnight you a new one. And finally, the digital experience is as much an omni-channel experience as the store is. And we counsel our clients not to be afraid of leveraging their brick and mortar infrastructure, not only to handle click and collect, but to use it for alternate shipping channels and to do returns. Why? For two reasons. One is 70% of the shoppers who make an in-store visit, whether it's for a buy online, pick up in store order, or a return will make an additional purchase at an increased basket size. In addition, inventory turns can be optimized, and the speed of shipment can be increased dramatically. If I can ship something from a store down the street, that customer is going to get it much faster than if they have to wait for it to come from a local or a regional distribution center. Digital commerce retailers, we've spent a significant amount of time improving and differentiating the customer's shopping experience. Better product pages, personalized landing pages, more accurate site searches, faster loading pages, responsive pages that work on the phones, all in an effort to improve conversion to drive revenue. So why focus on the customer satisfaction of the last mile? Well, I believe that the ROI can be even greater than the returns you get from a conversion initiative. And as an example, when we've worked through crafting a post-purchase experience to minimize stress and maximize convenience, it offers the retailers a chance to make an investment in a sustained relationship with a customer and build improved customer loyalty. We've worked with clients to build and measure business cases that show that when the last mile experience is done right, the lifetime value of the customer increases dramatically. They're far less expensive to convert. 80% are more likely to be repeat customers. And they could spend 15% higher in their basket. So with that, I'll turn it back to Adam.
Hey, Jeff. Actually, it's Kirsten. I'm going to take over from here. But no worries. I could not agree more with kind of your closing, right? It is incumbent upon retailers today to really look at customer lifetime value, loyalty, and retention as it pertains to last mile. And in fact, I would argue that the team here at Convey sees retailers doing a lot of things right, but those that are doing particularly well in the last mile are getting proactive, and they are sort of doing some of the things you mentioned earlier to get ahead of challenges in order to make last mile delivery a real competitive advantage that can help their companies grow because of that great customer retention, because of the fact that they're spending less money on attracting customers and more time retaining them and getting the great value out of that. So, how we think about this at Convey is a number of different ways, but I want to start with just a little bit of context to think about, how big of a challenge this is right now for retailers. And, first, you guys may not know that there are about 13.2 billion shipments a year in North America alone. That is massive. That is just a lot of shipments, and it's not going to reduce anytime soon. But what you might not know, and what was pretty alarming to me as we sort of sifted through the data that our clients pull through our platform, is that about 11.5% of those shipments have some form of exception. So we're talking billions of shipments a year where there's an exception. What's an exception? An exception could be a delay, it could be damage, it could even be, a delay that maybe your carrier, FedEx or UPS, doesn't think is a big deal, but that a consumer thinks is a big deal. If it's a missed promise date and I ordered shoes for my brother's wedding, it's going to be a real bummer if they're one day late because I didn't make the wedding, or if it's a gift for Father's Day. Missing those really critical milestones for a number of different types of deliveries has a huge impact on customer engagement and retention. And to Jeff's data from before, whether it's the 63% number or the 83% number that I cited, across the board, more than half, by a long shot, of your customers won't come back if they have a bad delivery experience. And more than 10% of them are seeing exceptions in those shipments. Interestingly, we actually think that's only going to increase. E-commerce is outgrowing shipping. More and more e-commerce shipments are happening. If you look at this sort of chart, The gray bar headed up towards the right is really all about shipment volume. I know I'm only buying more and more things online these days. I know Adam and Jeff are too, and you are probably as well. But how that's impacted our expectations as consumers and how that is changing the way that shipping has to get done is pretty dramatic. If you look at the bottom half of the chart, it's about delivery options. You look about sort of the top half of the chart, it's about time to delivery or days to delivery. And if we think about 20 years ago at the first entrance of the internet, we were all pretty excited that we could put money into the internet and it would ship us something. We were really simply taking the old catalog business and putting it online. So usually it was delivered by truck, and typically it could take around 10 days, and that was fine. That was actually super exciting for all of us. Then 10 years later, still delivering by truck, but we had more modes, more different types of trucks that we would see, and you saw times cutting in half. In the 2010 era, we expected to have things delivered in about 5 days, sometime within a week. Right now, we're close to 2020. The number of modes is increasing, whether it's a bike messenger, an Uber car, a flex driver for Amazon, any number of different mechanisms. We see around 8 to 10 different types of delivery options, and consumer expectations are getting closer to 2 days. And you heard Jeff mention some of the 2-day delivery stats earlier. But I always like to look ahead and think about, well, what's going to happen in 2030, 2035? Well, we only see that delivery types and modes are going to increase even more. We can make fun of drones as a concept, but I think the reality is we're going to see drones in some urban areas delivering things. It's likely to happen, but there are any number of other delivery robots that are all being piloted right now, and consumer expectations for certain areas are getting to be in under an hour, It's not every delivery. I don't need to have my toothpaste delivered every hour, but if I have a food delivery or baby diapers and I'm a mom with a young kid screaming, those are the kinds of things that we're starting to expect as consumers, and that's really starting to break the model of the way that we've thought about shipping over time.
Kirsten, the other thing I absolutely agree with the comment that the number of options is going to increase exponentially as we continue down this journey. We're actually seeing some retailers start to have discussions internally about how do they handle some of these leading edge technologies like self-driving delivery vehicles and drones. Not to do it today, but a lot of them believe it'll be coming way sooner than any of us expect.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's great to hear that your clients are starting to scratch the surface, because if they don't think about it now, they'll be on the back foot in 2030. And I think that puts a poignant point on sort of the next thing I want to talk about, which is what that leaves supply chain teams feeling like today. A lot of the clients that we talk to are feeling kind of overwhelmed about all the options that are available. When you have, call it 5 to 8 different modes that you're working with, you're getting stale or incomplete shipment data from a ton of different sources. Most of those clients are now trying to pull that into a bunch of different fragmented tools and processes. Customer care is using Zendesk. The OMS and the WMS are running on different systems. There's a TMS doing something else. All of these different MSs, if you will, all these different management systems are, have their own source of truth, not to mention disparate carrier data that's coming in. And a lot of those clients initially find themselves stuck with an inability to think about how to prioritize the problems they want to solve as they scale. More and more shipments means more and more data and complexity in the system, and they really need tools to help them proactively get ahead of doing that. But I want to talk about an example about what does it look like today when sort of brands are doing the status quo and they aren't yet getting proactive about this. And this first example here is really what we sort of like to think of as leaving delivery to chance, which is a very dangerous thing to do when you have customers on the line. Today a delivery might look like, I place an order and it ships. I get an email for a carrier tracking page, and that's happened to me recently. I have some wine that was coming from FedEx, and I have a very irritating circular engagement of trying to get FedEx to my house when I'm home because I need to sign for it pretty challenging experience. But and the retail brand is being cut out of this loop, even though that's who I gave my money. That's who I want to trust. So in this context, in a traditional world, not only, as Jeff mentioned before, is a retailer losing the brand connectivity and that opportunity to engage with their customer, but maybe, even worse, if something bad happens and there's a delay, there's no notification, because why would FedEx want to tell me that there's a delay? Well, guess what? Now I'm going to call the brand. That first Wizmo or Where Is My Order call, that's not free. Those typically cost between $2 and $7 for every brand every time you get one of those calls. And let's say that that customer care agent doesn't have good information. That's a very unsatisfactory experience for me. So maybe later I call again. And God forbid, what if the package is damaged? Well, ultimately what that typically results in is actually a damaged package getting to the customer late, who's frustrated, and who's ultimately got declining Net Promoter Scores and an unlikelihood to do business with that business again. So leaving delivery to chance and sort of saying, hey, I've handed it over to carrier XYZ, let's set it and forget it, is really not what brands of today can afford to do. So what does it look like on the other hand, experiences, right? We can wax philosophical about how not to do it all day long, but I think it's more important to talk about what are the right things, what are leading brands doing today. And we would say they're doing three major things. The first is that they have visibility to all of the data about their deliveries, regardless of what shipper or carrier they're using, regardless of what platform it's in, but they need to be able to find and understand their shipment. The second is that they need to engage with their customers. They need to communicate with the customer and empower the customer to be part of the solution if something goes wrong with a shipment, but at very least have transparency and engagement in that process. And then most importantly, they have to act on the information that they have. In a lot of cases today, we see brands starting with visibility or simple tracking solutions, but simply telling me that my package is late isn't enough. I need you to do something about it. So acting is really the pillar here that is critical in terms of getting proactive and building a competitive advantage out of delivery. And that's actually why they exist. So I'll talk a little bit about delivery experience management, which is what we think brands should be doing. And that is truly this art. It's not just a science, but it truly is an art of proactively ensuring that customers get their orders how and when they expect. Right? They need to be on time, in full, the way that a customer expects. And that takes three major sets of capabilities, which we've spent a lot of time working with retail partners to build. The first are visibility solutions, right? Unifying real-time carrier data in a single place so that it's consistent, it's been normalized, and it's easy to use an API-based system to provide the visibility that brands need, both for an individual customer care agent, but all the way up to supply chain leadership who might be doing carrier negotiations. On the far right, we've got customer experience, right? Branded tracking pages, the ability to do appointment scheduling for large item deliveries like furniture or electronics. Those kinds of things that really put the customer at the heart of the engagement are absolutely critical, but they're not enough. In the center, what you see is this sort of ability to take action. And the way that we think about that is first around insights and analytics, right? If you don't know what's going wrong, you don't know what to take action on. That could mean kind of macro level delivery performance, or it could even be down to the nitty-gritty of, hey, where are shipments getting stalled along the way? Those insights then drive into exception recovery. And exception recovery is fundamentally workflow between the shipper and the carrier that enable 4 times faster issue resolution so that brands can actually fix things when they go wrong, because those 11.5% of the time that things go wrong, something's got to be done about it. And trying to do that manually through email, phone calls, spreadsheets is really ineffective. Getting proactive requires the tools to do this at scale. So I'd love to talk a little bit about a couple of brands that are doing this. The first is Uncommon Goods. And if you've never heard of Uncommon Goods, they're a really cool company, and they're a gifting company, if you will. They provide a catalog, digital and physical, of very interesting and unique gift items that are for all sorts of things. I personally have shopped them for Father's Day because they have some unique and cool things. But as you can imagine, as a gifting company, for any holiday or major milestone, they see a lot of spikes and peaks in sort of need. And a couple of things that they wanted to do, they first wanted to provide consistent communication to their customers, right? Because they see delivery as a storefront. They don't have any physical stores, and their consumers only shop digitally or via catalog with them. But they also wanted to get proactive to make sure that gifts arrive on time, because their brand is truly at risk. If my Father's Day gift didn't arrive, why would I ever buy again from that retailer? So they ended up using Convey's delivery experience management solution during peak to not only communicate delivery expectations to their customers, but even more importantly, they did something very cool. They used our algorithmic insights to identify when shipments were off track. And if someone's Father's Day gift wasn't going to arrive, they would cancel the order and reship an expedite order. What they saw overall was significantly increased on-time performance. 54% of their consumers left positive feedback about that shipping experience through the tracking page, and a lot of their customers engaged with them through email and SMS. So ultimately, they were really happy about this outcome, and it's something that they wouldn't have been able to do without technology by their side. And I know, Jeff, you've had some experience with this type of capability as well, right?
Yeah, it's really cool that you guys do this. As a CTO for a retailer, I actually built this capability, and I will tell you, it's not as easy as it sounds. And then later on, as a consultant, they actually worked with a gift provider to kind of think through this model, and the business case was exactly what you're suggesting. It was, let's proactively try to find stalled shipments through the data, and then let's try and rescue that delivery, and if we can't, let's expedite the delivery to make the day we promised. And the data's all there. It's just you have to sift through it through technology, and it sounds like you guys have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think, I love that we always think about promise date, and the consumer ultimately holds that brand accountable. So being able to get ahead of it and be proactive to meet the promise date is super valuable. Cool. Let's talk a very quick hit on a capability. Jeff talked earlier about communicating with your customers, frictionless customer experience, having branded tracking pages, automated alerts, even the ability to do self-service appointment scheduling. Alerts and things are table stakes. Self-service appointment scheduling is actually pretty new and challenging, and only a subset of carriers tend to offer this, but being able to do that digitally is huge. So definitely something for you to think about as you're evaluating what you build and buy. Thinking about how you make that customer experience frictionless is super valuable. The next brand I want to talk about is one that hopefully you're hearing of because they're growing really, really fast. Grove Collaborative is doing delivery experience management in what I would say is some of the most forward-looking way of all the clients that we're working with today. They are a venture-backed, high-growth consumer packaged goods company, and they basically sell eco-friendly or green home cleaning products. They've got brands like Meyer's soap that you know, and they also have some of their own label brands. And what's interesting about them is because they are a fast-growing brand and they really put brand at the center of their customer experience, they know that they can't afford to mess up with a customer. Part of their business is also subscription. So if you mess up once, you've lost that recurring revenue stream, which is really, really important. So their ethos and their sort of customer-centric culture was already there, but they needed tools to try and do at scale what they were doing very manually. So they actually turned to Convey and are doing what we call exception recovery on a proactive basis, identifying damaged goods and delayed items and parcels in transit, and again, getting ahead of them before a customer is impacted. And what was so interesting to us, there were a couple of unexpected outcomes. Like the NPS improvement of 9.4%, we kind of expected it, but it's a really nice big bump. The cost savings at the bottom, we also expected, right? When they were able to get ahead of damage claims, saved $63. When they were able to get ahead of incorrect addresses through early identification of return to sender notifications, they were able to save $23 for incorrect address. But the most surprising is that they were able to do this so efficiently that their small team of customer care agents were able to get faster at resolution and spend a bunch of their time doing what they call being a Grove guide, actually helping upsell and cross-sell the product. And they saw a double in average order value since they've been using the platform. So that was a pretty cool outcome that we weren't expecting, but that I think shows how a brand can really take a leadership position and use proactive delivery experience management to be able to create a true competitive advantage and fuel their growth. What that looks like in practice is literally the ability to take an exception, an issue, whether that's a delay, damage, return to sender, and start a case, right? Identify them, assign ownership, collaborate live with carriers. Carriers are actually logging into the platform. Some carriers are emailing into the platform and having truly a single source of truth about a damage or issue along the way. So that when I as a consumer call in, it's not me playing the telephone game. Instead, Grove is able to look it up, action it, and ensure that everything is resolved quickly. On average, what we're seeing is clients using exception recovery capabilities are seeing about a 4 times faster resolution time than they had with their sort of older manual methods of phone call, spreadsheet, telephone game. And that's a pretty great outcome for everyone. Not only is the customer happier, but it's a lot of cost savings and efficiency on the brand side. And the last brand goes without saying. Everyone's hopefully heard of Neiman Marcus. They're a partner that we've worked with for a number of years and love working with them. If you don't know, they actually have a large item furniture side of their business. And that's the part of the business that we've really helped Neiman Marcus improve. We've been working with them since July of 2017, and together with them, we've been able to provide both in-transit visibility to their customers, but also, again, take action when exceptions happen, or schedule appointments much more quickly. And in fact, a lot of times, appointment scheduling is one of the biggest challenges for large item delivery because you and I as consumers, we don't answer the phone when an unknown number shows up. So eventually you're in this, again, telephone game with a completely unknown party that's, a last final mile white glove carrier in your local market, and just that alone is 5 to 7 days of back and forth before you schedule it, and then you have to reschedule it. So we've supported them in improving transit time, but also in setting nearly 25,000 appointments to help their customers have a much better experience. There's one more capability I want to talk about that doesn't speak to any particular case study, but it really speaks to all of the things that these brands are doing, and it's really around insights. All of the data that we're talking about that typically sits in disparate systems, right? Getting different carrier sets of data from all of your different carrier partners is hard to sort of visualize in a meaningful and helpful way. So Convey has actually pulled together a number of insights to help brands optimize their network so that it's not just handling an individual exception when Kirsten's couch is late, but it's also zooming out to the 50,000-foot level and looking at things like you can see a screenshot here of transportation hotspots. For example, this January, there was both a Super Bowl and a snowstorm in Atlanta all at the same time. You can imagine what might have happened to deliveries during that time frame. In fact, we saw a massive spike in delay and weather delay exceptions. But those are the obvious ones. It turns out there's lots of non-obvious reasons that your shipments could be in distress. And Convey Insights are elevating those to the logistics team so that you can get ahead of them, partner with your carriers, make sure that you are understanding what's going on in the network and benchmarking that against billions of shipping events that we track, partnered with the 100-plus years of supply chain expertise that Convey has in-house. So the last thing I'll say, and whether it's using software from Convey or thinking about other ways of doing this, right, effective delivery experience management and getting proactive about making the last mile really a competitive advantage pays dividends in 2 critical ways. The first, and the reason that we want to do this as brands, is that there's huge upside, right? we can improve CSAT and NPS. We're driving customer engagement. We're increasing lifetime value. All of those things are what is required in today's competitive landscape to build a brand. But we don't just get to do that because it's the right thing to do. It also has to make financial sense. And the good news is that it saves you money to do delivery experience management. On average, our clients see 6x or more return on their investment because of the efficiency that they see in reducing withmail calls, reducing reships and cancellations, and even getting better performance from their delivery carriers. So lots of different ways to think about it, but I always sort of boil it down to the reason you want to do delivery experience management is because it's great for the customer and the brand. The way you get to pay for it is because it pays for itself 6 times over. So with that, I'll leave you with a brief overview of Convey. We are an Austin, Texas-based technology company. We work with 120-plus brands, folks like Neiman Marcus, who we talked about, but also the Home Depot, Eddie Bauer, Bed Bath & Beyond, Rent the Runway, The Honest Company, a number of brands that hopefully you're shopping with and loving today. And we are in the business of perfecting delivery experiences. So I'd love with that to turn it back over to Adam so we can see if there's any questions on the line.
Well, thanks, Kirsten, and also Jeffrey for those great insights. We have gotten some good questions, so I'm just going to dive right in. First one I think would be for you, Kirsten. This person says, I'm already using a lot of resources just managing the last mile now. How would I get started with taking a more proactive approach?
That is a super good question to the caller on the line. And I think it's something that we actually hear quite often. There's sort of this, my gosh, it's overwhelming. You're asking me to do more. And the reality around proactivity is that on an initial sniff test, it seems like more. But once you start applying the sort of combination of technology and human collaboration to this, what we actually see people doing is actually streamlining very, very quickly because they're able to, number one, have access to better data so they can get answers faster. Number two, leverage a lot of automation from the tool itself to get some of the easy stuff out of the way. An example is, for example, return to senders. When you have return to senders, it turns out that actually can be up to like 6% of your exceptions are bad addresses, even though most of us are using address verification software. Maybe someone forgot to put an apartment number or did something silly like that. If you can use the system to early flag that and identify it before the third attempt, why not use automation and trigger something out of our system to go out and request that apartment address so that you get it into the carrier's hands before they start returning it back to you and cost you $23. Using automation and insights along with the tooling absolutely ends up reducing resources overall and driving great efficiency gains. So it may seem at first like it's more, but ultimately it absolutely turns out to be less resource intensive to get proactive.
Right, just getting over that hump, but then you find you're actually not devoting as much manpower and resources to it. Okay, interesting. This question I think would be for Jeff. In terms of data about how many retailers are offering either 2-day or same-day delivery, I'm wondering how widespread is this? The person is asking, is this something I'll need to offer in order to be competitive in my market?
I think the first place I'd start to try and answer that question is to ask them to look at their customer, who the customer is, where they live, and what they value. Not all customers are going to value 2-day or same-day delivery. Not all locations are feasible to do that. And while 39% of the retailers may have some ability to offer same-day delivery, it's more likely that they're servicing that in the urban markets or in the cities, and it's more than likely that those products are consumable products or smaller form factor products and not larger, bulkier items.
Okay. And I think it would probably also go that people, as you're sort of alluding to, different types of products and different types of deliveries are going to have different demand levels. Some people, as Kirsten I think was saying, it's more about send it to me when I know I'll be home and can sign for it versus it has to be there within 24 hours. So yeah, so definitely something that needs to be explored, I would think. Jeff, I wanted to stay with you, and this is more of a general question. What are some of the reasons you think consumers are becoming more demanding in terms of the last mile, and what is it that's raising expectation levels among customers?
Well, I think about it in two ways. One is kind of this consumerization of technology. We all have our life in our pocket with a mobile device. We all have become used to instant access to information through apps on the phone, and then obviously there's the Amazon effect, where Amazon for a number of years has been pushing the rest of the retail environment to deliver faster, to deliver cheaper, and to deliver more efficiently. And so I think those two pieces tied together has really given the consumer the ability to say, well, why can't I have it faster? Why can't I do it in a day or 2 days?
Okay.
Yeah, I would jump
Kirsten,
in on that and say, yeah, I think Jeff's points are really good ones, and I'll point out another example that I think is kind of the type of thing that is raising our expectations. It's not just the Uberization also of things, but if you even think about it, right, Domino's launched their pizza tracker, 2 years ago? And as a consumer, we think, Domino's is sophisticated enough to show me where my pizza is in the assembly line and get it to me within an hour. Why can't you tell me where my shoes are, right? FedEx and UPS have been around for ages. Dear brand X, why can't you get me that information, right? So there are some of these much more complex processes that are raising the bar and making people sort of ask that question of, why aren't these other areas rising to the challenge? And I think for that reason, retailers have a little bit of their sort of challenge cut out for them, but it gives them this huge opportunity. Those that get there first and that are doing a better job do actually have a competitive advantage because, as we know, people value experiences quite a lot, and that is what's driving brand affinity for them.
Very good points. Very good points. All right. Well, unfortunately, we're getting a bit short on time. So we hope you'll join us for the Retail Innovation Conference. It's going to be held May 6th through the 8th, 2019 in New York City. It's going to be a great event, and you can find more details at www.retailinnovationconference.com. If you did not receive an answer to the question they posed, our speakers will be able to follow up after the presentation. I encourage you to get the scoop on all the CCS sessions by going to the link on the screen now. Thanks for attending, and have a great day.